Part 37. Super God Undead Lord. Author, B.A. Wangshi-san. Chapter 361. It's unbelievable that someone as strong as Suange is actually willing to join the Water Alliance. The Sword Emperor felt very troubled by Suange's arrival. He hopes that the Water Alliance will be strong, but he does not want the Water Alliance to be too powerful. If the Water Alliance is strong, it can defeat Zeus and become the #1 force in the national server. It will seize the best resources in the national server and gradually distance itself from other forces. By then, he would lead his proud army away from the warm embrace of the Water League and naturally become the second force in the national server. Then he would attack the Water League and have the opportunity to take his place and realize his ideals. But if the Water Alliance is too powerful, he may not be able to defeat the Water Alliance. That would be meaningless. The Sword Emperor only has the #1 in his eyes. If he cannot become the #1, he will still be a defeated general and a lost dog in his eyes. I have long heard that Suange and Huang Mao had grudges against each other, but now it seems that their relationship is better than that of ordinary brothers. What is going on? The Sword Emperor almost lost his temper, and it took him a long time to calm down. He can only take one step at a time. In short, he will wait until the Water League defeats Zeus and becomes the #1 force in the national server. On the other side, Zeus. President, now the Water Alliance has defeated the Demon God, and more importantly, Suange Haoshan and others have joined the Water Alliance. Their current power has threatened us, Zeus. Do you think we should suppress them? Says the right hand of God. Need not. God waved his left hand and said, our position is better and our resources are richer. If we continue to develop steadily like this, the gap between them and us will only get wider and wider. So if they don't hit us, we don't need to touch them. It makes sense. But, if we fight now, can't we immediately widen the gap? God said again with his right hand. God glanced at him with his left hand, frowned and said, what you said is nice, what if we fail? President. God's right hand was startled. He never thought that Zeus would fail, and he never thought that the wise president would have a lack of confidence. Could it be that the Water Alliance has really grown enough to shake the giant of Zeus? Seemingly understanding the former's confusion, God said with his left hand, I'm not afraid of them. It's just that we, Zeus, are firmly in first place now and have the best resources, so they are the ones who should be more worried. Another point is that I now have a god-level bloodline at level 115. Once I reach level 120, I will definitely gather souls and become a spirit king. Before gathering spirits, the level gap within 10 levels is not big, but after I gather spirits at level 120, even if Muddy Waters Suange and the others reach level 119, I won't take them seriously. The best nourishes the best, do you understand what I'm saying? Well, as long as the president has confidence. God nodded with his right hand and said no more. Just as God's left hand thought, Yang Tian now had concerns. He was a fully formed necromancer, and his upgrade efficiency was unparalleled. He originally thought that with this advantage, he could be the first to reach level 120 soul gathering. By then, he would be absolutely sure to lead the Water Alliance to defeat Zeus. But the reality was not as he wished. Not only did he not widen the level gap with God's left hand, but he was led by the latter by a full 5 levels. It did take a lot of time to deal with the Huang family, but more importantly, I underestimated the strength of God's left hand and the gap in resources between the islands. Yang Tian sighed inwardly. Now he and the Water Alliance are in a dilemma. Now that Zeus is firmly in the first place, if he is left alone, the gap between the two sides will only get wider and wider. And when God's left hand reaches level 120, it becomes even more terrifying. But if we attack now, it's okay to succeed and we can close the gap. If we fail, then this gap that was not too big in the first place will only become bigger. I am the main attacker. It is still possible now. If we don't fight, we will have difficulty in shaking the Zeus national server's #1 position in the future. Everyone in the Water League was worried. Huang Mao took the lead and said that he was the main attacker. Hearing this, many senior officials present nodded secretly. In fact, everyone knows that before gathering spirits, the level difference of 1 to 20 levels was still acceptable. But if we wait until God's left hand gathers the spirit, then the Water Alliance will be really in danger. It is indeed dangerous to fight Zeus now, but this is the only chance to make a comeback. Wait a little longer, I always feel that I can be the first to gather spirits, Yang Tian said. Huang Mao, Sci-fi, Sword Emperor, and others were all startled. Brother Shui, I know you clear monsters very quickly, but resources are a big problem, Xiao Fei said. Now we are fighting level 115 monsters, but as far as I know, God Left Hand and others have already fought level 119 monsters. Strange, the experience gained is completely different. Even if you kill monsters quickly, the upgrade efficiency may not be better than God's Left Hand, not to mention that guy is already 5 levels ahead of you. Well, so I want to go to the island further ahead, Yang Tian said. The island further ahead. Xianji's eyes suddenly lit up, and everyone was startled. In the Sea of Ruins, the farther the island is, the higher the level of monsters or NPC natives. Yang Tian's so-called island further ahead naturally refers to the island occupied by Zeus, or the island further ahead. They didn't think that Yang Tian dared to rush to Zeus's territory alone, so that meant that Yang Tian was going to the island further ahead. Xiao Fei sighed, Brother Shui, the island occupied by Zeus already contains monsters of level 119. If you want to go further, then there are monsters of level 120. Don't you know that level 120 is another watershed? Monsters above level 120 are the weakest ones. And the Sea of Ruins is the world map, which means there are world bosses above level 120. World bosses are comparable to lords of the same level. In other words, on the island in that deep sea area, there are all monsters above level 120 with lord strength, and they survive in groups. That's terrible. Even if the version enhances the player's physical strength and enhances the player's survivability, no one dares to go to that sea area. Even as strong as Zeus has not crossed that line so far. Well, if it's there, there will be no resource gap between you and God's left hand, and you may even surpass it. In this way, you may indeed reach level 120 before him. Xianji nodded. Hearing this, everyone present couldn't help but gasp. Hey, you are not kidding, are you really going? Yang Tian went after all. He knew that the sea ahead was full of Zeus sentinels. If he was discovered by the other party, God's left hand would probably attack the Water Alliance immediately. So he sent Tang Snake and rode it to fly in the air. Tang Snake is a huge beast. Yang Tian rode on its back and looked so small that he could hardly be discovered. Fierce beasts often appear in the Sea of Ruins. Even if they saw Tang Snake, Zeus's sentinels would probably be used to it and not take it seriously. Unless Tang Snake took the initiative to provoke them, but that was impossible. Because of this, Yang Tian's journey was very smooth. Super God Undead Lord. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 362. System, you discovered the Island of Ruins, 41, and gained 82,000 experience points. Tang Snake is a flying mount with extremely fast speed. In less than an hour, Yang Tian flew over the island occupied by Zeus and landed Tang Snake on the first island after it. These 41 islands are undoubtedly world maps above level 120. For each island in the Sea of Ruins, the first player to discover it will receive an additional skill point. The reason why Yang Tian did not receive a skill point reward when he came to this island is that he was not the first to discover it. It should be God's left hand or other masters of Zeus who discovered it before him. Even if they discovered this island, they would not be able to occupy it. Yang Tian smiled confidently. He even thought that apart from himself, even God's left hand would not dare to stay on this island for a while. Because this island is too dangerous. The strongest monster on the 40th island is only a world elite of level 119. And any monster that appears on these 41 islands is a world leader above level 120. The gap between them is too big. In the dense jungle where Yang Tian and Tang Snake were, a rustling sound suddenly sounded, which made Yang Tian alert immediately, while Tang Snake looked indifferent. Suddenly, giant lizards came from all directions to surround Yang Tian and his companions. Most of the giant lizards were emerald green, 1 meter high and 5 meters long. Of course, the slender tail accounted for half of their body length. This was a wind lizard. Wind lizard, world boss. Level 120. HP, 15 million. Basic physical attack, 180,000. No attribute attack. Skills, Wind Step, Wind Blade, Storm, Impact, Rollover. Yang Tian looked around and found that there were more than 100 wind lizards in this wave. Among the wind lizards, there are several larger lizards. They are yellowish-brown and look thick-skinned. They are real giant lizards. Giant lizard, World Lord. Level 125. HP, 45 million. Basic physical attack, 520,000. Non-attribute attack. Skills, Slam, Whip. Passive, Earthquake, Iron. Suddenly, the wind lizards let out a piercing hiss and activated the wind step at the same time. At this moment, a whirlwind swirled under the feet of all the wind lizards, causing them to move faster and attack Yang Tian Tang Snake frantically. Those giant lizards were half a beat slower and followed the large group closely. Tang Snake is a level 110 royal beast. With the majesty of the royal beast, it can slightly reduce some of their attributes. But they are not afraid at all. After all, each of them is not weak, and they have a huge advantage in numbers. This island is really dangerous. Even if I have a bone shield, I will definitely not last a second under the attack of this group of wind lizards. Yang Tian used the Eye of Truth to check the attributes of the wind lizards and secretly concentrated. At this moment, the wind lizards in the inner circle had reached the attack distance, opened their mouths, condensed wind blades, and swept towards Yang Tian's Tang Snake. Yang Tian immediately stomped his feet, transformed into a vampire count, spread his wings and flew high into the sky, dodging the wave of wind blades. However, the arrogant Tang Snake was not so lucky. It was so huge that it almost bore the damage of all the wind blades in that wave, and screamed miserably. Yang Tian lowered his eyes to scan its blood bar, and it actually lost 1/8, about 10 million lives. Damn beast! Tang Snake roared in pain, fluttered its wings, and slightly soared into the air, and then quickly condensed countless wind blades and smashed them down randomly. Tang Snake is a royal beast after all, and has more powerful skills than wind lizards. Tang Snake hit more than 10 wind lizards with one move, knocking them to the ground, but each one only lost 1/5 of its blood. After all, it is a group attack skill, and the percentage is not high. If Tang Snake hits a wind lizard alone, it can kill it instantly. The wind lizards are very fast, and soon they condense into a group below. They all look up and condense wind blades again to sweep towards Yang Tian Tang Snake. Just now, only less than 30 wind lizards in the inner circle focused their fire, but this time, hundreds of wind lizards focused their fire at the same time. Not to mention Yang Tian, even Tang Snake has only one way to die. 5 elements shield. Yang Tian immediately changed his clothes and opened the shield, gaining the effect of immunity to all damage within 5 seconds. At the same time, he also symbolically put a bone shield on Tang Snake. His bone shield has a life thickness of about 20 million. Boom boom boom. Countless wind blades intensively swept at Yang Tian Tang Snake, causing explosions. Yang Tian has a 5-element shield on his body, and all the wind blades that hit him will dissipate instantly and cannot hurt him at all. Tang Snake was in a very miserable state. Its bone shield was instantly covered with cracks and then shattered, and the subsequent wind blades directly hit it, and it screamed and its blood tank dropped like water. In less than a second, its life returned to zero and it died, turning into white light and escaping into Yang Tian's pet space, falling into a sleeping state. When a battle pet dies, it drops one level and falls into a sleeping state. Players must use pet resurrection grass to wake it up. Resurrection grass is sold in major pet stores and is also divided into different qualities. Resurrection grass that can revive ordinary pets is quite cheap, 1 silver coin per plant. Converted to RMB, it is 1 yuan per plant. Resurrection grass that can revive the Emperor Beast battle pet is quite expensive, 100 gold coins per plant. Converted to RMB, it is 10,000 per plant. The resurrection grass that can revive a spirit beast pet is out of stock in the pet store and can only be obtained by chance. Of course, most players may never get a spirit beast pet in their lifetime. When Yang Tian got the Tang Snake, he also expected that it would die in battle one day, so he prepared a few royal resurrection grasses. At that moment, he resurrected the Tang Snake, and at this time, the Tang Snake was a level 109 royal beast. The wind blade CD of the wind lizard is very short, only 1.5 seconds. Immediately, the wind lizards below focused their fire on Yang Tian again, but unfortunately Yang Tian's 5 elements shield was still there, immune to all damage. It seems that the Tang Snake is still a little bit unable to bear it. Yang Tian's side secretly, and did not summon the Tang Snake again, but sent out the Dwarf King Carry. A flash of white light, Carry, holding Bart's heavy hammer, appeared in the group of wind lizards below. Carry's level is higher than his, and he is already a world emperor of level 112. Because of the world title, although he is not as good as the Spirit King, or Spirit Beast, of the same level, he is much stronger than the Tang Snake. Carry's HP is close to 200 million, and his double defense and double protection are quite high. Each of his attributes is stronger than Tang Snake, and his overall strength is far better than Tang Snake. If Tang Snake didn't have wings to fly, Carry could have crushed it. Seeing the new enemy appear, some wind lizards abandoned Yang Tian and attacked Carry. Wind Blade. Impact. 310,022. 280,900. 290,340. There were countless injuries on Carry's head, but his HP only dropped slightly, which shows that his tolerance is much stronger than Tang Snake. Very good, Carry can really hold on. Yang Tian smiled slightly. Now Carry's existence can completely replace Xiao Jin as his meat shield, and even better. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super God Undead Lord. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 363. Humph, the wind lizards focused their fire on Carry. Although he didn't feel much pain, he still roared angrily and swung the Bart hammer wildly. Bart's heavy hammer is more than 3 meters long, and its attack range is so large that Carry can hit 3 or 5 wind lizards with one sweep. Bart's heavy hammer has its own stun feature. Under Carry's wild sweep, the wind lizard will often fall into dizziness and stand still. 300, 2012. 310, 3020. 309, 8201. Carry's combat power is so powerful that with just basic attacks and the earthquake passive, he can kill 1/5 of the wind lizard's life. Moreover, his attack range was large, and he killed several wind lizards in a series of sweeps. In addition, every time Carry hits the wind lizard with a heavy hammer, a dark light will flash. This is a dark attribute attack. Carry originally did not have attribute attacks, but Yang Tian enchanted a dark crystal on his heavy hammer, giving it a dark attribute attack. In addition, Yang Tian personally selected a set of equipment and gems for him that mainly increase dark power. In this way, when Carry attacks, he will be able to produce additional dark attribute damage. Roll over. The wind lizards seemed to know how powerful Kree was, and they all jumped up, circled and rolled to distance themselves. Then, the giant lizards came forward forcefully, and the wind lizards used long-range attacks such as wind blades and storms. The giant lizard is much stronger than the wind lizard, but because the number is too small, it cannot cause much damage to Kree. It's just that the giant lizards have high defense and health, and have the iron skin passive, so it's difficult for the Kree to kill them. With the giant lizard restraining Kree, the wind lizards hid behind and dealt with peace of mind. Only monsters actually knew how to arrange such tactics. In addition, there are still some wind lizards who focus their fire power on Yang Tian in mid-air. Seeing that the 5 elements shield was about to dissipate, Yang Tian immediately summoned the little devil. The little devil screamed strangely and flew towards Carry to merge with it. Devil sucker. At this moment, all the giant lizards present had scarlet eyes and attacked Carry frantically as if they had lost their minds. The wind lizards that originally attacked Yang Tian gave up instantly. At this time, they only had Carry in their eyes, and they attacked frantically, as if Carry had poked their ancestral graves. In addition, the devil's sucker has its own suction power, which makes all the lizards present involuntarily move towards Carry. Of course, Carry also understood that the monitor lizards were thick-skinned, so he abandoned them and instead attacked the wind lizards that rushed towards them. Dark Sea of Fire. Seeing that all the fire power was absorbed by Carry, Yang Tian completely relaxed and immediately laid down a sea of dark fire. Its scope is so large that it incinerates all the lizards present. After the revision, the percentage damage of Dark Sea of Fire is lower, and it cannot trigger critical hits. 9201. 9201. 9201. Full frequency of damage was released, but each damage was not high. Even the wind lizard has a huge lifespan of 15 million, let alone the monitor lizard. The Dark Sea of Fire rising into the sky, with less than 10,000 burns per second, is simply insignificant to them. Seeing this, Yang Tian shook his head and sighed. The dark fire sea is considered useless. However, his Dark Sea of Fire also has a full TP effect. Even if the burn is very low, it can still reduce the dark resistance of all enemies within the range by 5,500 points. At this time, Carry's damage suddenly skyrocketed. Originally, his normal attack could only knock out 1/5 of the wind lizard's health, but now he could kill it instantly. And the damage overflows. The lizard's dark resistance is reduced, and Kree's dark attribute damage naturally increases. This is also the reason why Yang Tian enchanted his heavy hammer with dark crystal instead of other attribute crystals. Carry holds Bart's hammer, which has a large attack range, and now he can kill the wind lizard instantly, making him become extremely violent. The sky is falling apart. Carry suddenly jumped up with the hammer and slammed it down, causing the ground to crack and dust to fly. The group of lizards below were also swept away by the violent shock wave, and then fell to the ground and died directly. When the smoke and dust cleared, all the wind lizards present were dead, leaving only a few scarred and dying giant lizards. Carry stepped on the corpse of the wind lizard and rushed over. He was able to kill a giant lizard with residual blood in almost 3 hits. A moment later, he killed all the lizards. Tisk, tisk, I just released a sea of dark fire and barely made a move, and the battle is over, Yang Tian sighed and laughed in mid-air. The Kree are indeed very strong, but the Dark Sea of Fire does play a huge role. After the battle, Yang Tian sent Teng Shi to clean up the battlefield. Yes, Yang Tian also bought Teng Shi a skill book on automatic object picking and let her learn it. I think Teng Shi, have been reduced to picking up trash for others. Teng Shi was arrogant and seemed to be dissatisfied as she groaned. Benlay Leopard, or Snow Wolf King Ziobai, were both hatched from pet eggs by Yang Tian. Their loyalty is extremely high, and soaring snakes. Yang Tian could see that Teng Shi's favorability, i.e. loyalty, towards him was only 63 points. If you treat it badly, or make it die a few more times, its favorability will drop below 60 points and it will run away directly. If it were in reality, Yang Tian could use force to suppress it, so that it would not dare to have the intention to escape. But the game has its own settings and mechanisms. If it escapes, Yang Tian really has no way to deal with it. In the game, players can either hatch pets through pet eggs or use traps to capture pets. But it is simply impossible to capture a royal beast with a trap. In reality, Yang Tian used his identity as an awakener to subdue a royal beast war pet. This opportunity is rare. Yang Tian was naturally reluctant to let Teng Snake escape. Seeing that it was dissatisfied, he smiled and comforted it. Teng Snake, don't be discouraged. As long as you follow me, you will be successful sooner or later. How to succeed? Think about my Teng Snake clan. The bloodline is precious, and there are also divine beasts among them. But I am the worst one. I don't even have a little bloodline. My talent and potential are really limited. Even if I level up in the future, my rank is here. Teng Snake sighed and said wittily, why don't you release me to that world? In that case, I can not only succeed, but also become a hegemon. You are useless, Yang Tian sneered and said, as long as you follow me honestly, I may reward you with a bloodline when I am happy in the future. Really? Teng Snake's eyes lit up. There is no need to lie to you. You see, I have spiritual bloodline, Kei Li also has spiritual bloodline, and Xian Yuan Longer has dragon bloodline. Yang Tian smiled. That's great. I want the blood of the divine dragon. At the very least, I want a piece of dragon blood. I've wanted to evolve into a dragon for a long time. Then, I can find other Teng Snakes to show off, Teng Snake said excitedly. Dragons seem to have a natural suppression on snakes. Teng Snake is afraid of dragons and also wants to evolve into a dragon. Super God Undead Lord. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 364. Speaking of dragon blood, there are 11 copies in the Dragon Valley, one of which is the blood of the divine dragon. Yinlong once said that as long as Xian Yuan Longer took the head of any city lord of the Xinwu Empire, the 11 copies of blood would be controlled by her, which was a disguised recognition of her strength and throne. Yang Tian knew that day would come sooner or later. However, there were only 11 copies of blood in total, which were extremely precious, and Yang Tian might not give one to Teng Shi. Let's talk about it later. Yang Tian comforted Teng Shi casually and stabilized him. After a while, Yang Tian miraculously found that Teng Shi's favorability towards him rose to 80 points, and it no longer said anything, but honestly cleaned up the battlefield. Teng Shi has automatic pickup, and the items it picked up will automatically appear in the inventory of its owner, that is, Yang Tian. The 100 lizards exploded some equipment, all of which were level 120-125 equipment, most of which were silver equipment, and there was even a gold equipment. Yang Tian took a casual look and found that all the equipment above level 120 were marked with a sign, and the basic attributes were strengthened by a level. In Taixu, level 120 is a watershed, and the weakest monsters are all leaders. Players with bloodlines can also gather spirits directly after level 120 and become spirit kings. But in fact, most players do not have bloodlines, and Taixu is also very caring for these adventurers. After players reach level 120, even if they do not have bloodlines, they can have stronger equipment to increase their survivability. Yang Tian is still wearing the 10-piece 5 elements set, Amos's hero ring, and the 5 elements ring for shield replacement. The 5 elements set is only a level 80 imperial set. Yang Tian is now level 110 and still hasn't changed it, but he can consider changing it after reaching level 120. Even a set of level 120 gold equipment is stronger than the 5 elements set. After a moment, the dark sea of fire dissipated. At the same time, the dark sea of fire also cooled down. The dark sea of fire lasts for 1 minute and cools down for 1 minute. To some extent, it can be released in an infinite loop. It's just that the coordinates cannot be changed. So, Yang Tian led the Cry Tank Snake to move forward again. Of course, Yang Tian's Tank Snake was hiding in the air in a wretched manner, mainly relying on the Cry Tank Snake that merged with the Little Devil to attract fire power. Along the way, Yang Tian's Cry Tank Snake slaughtered countless wind lizards and giant lizards along the way, gaining rolling experience. As expected of the world leader and world lord, he has a lot of experience, several times more than the previous world elite. Yang Tian exclaimed happily. At this pace, his upgrade efficiency is much faster than God's left hand. It is entirely possible to reach the 120th level of gathering spirits before God's left hand. After an unknown period of time, a purple swamp appeared in front of Yang Tian and others. Before entering, a pungent smell came. It was a venomous swamp. In front of them was a venomous swamp, and behind them was a dense jungle. Yang Tian and the other two were at the intersection. "Brother, let's go in and take a look." Carrie was skilled and brave, and he was not afraid even though there was some strange smell coming from the poisonous swamp ahead. "Yeah." Yang Tian nodded and summoned 50 Black Knights to move forward with Carrie. The Black Knight was a level 110 undead lord, and its attributes were slightly weaker than the level 120 world leader Wind Lizard. But the Black Knights blessed Yang Tian's attributes, and in terms of combat power alone, they were completely better than the Wind Lizard. In the poisonous swamp, old trees withered, weeds grew lushly, the terrain collapsed and pitted, and there were puddles everywhere. Those puddles were full of purple venom, thick and bubbling, and filled with pungent odors. Yang Tian transformed into a vampire count and flew in the air with Tank Shi, so there was no need to say more. Carrie also knew how to avoid puddles, but those stupid Black Knights rushed around. Even if they were puddles filled with purple venom, they would step on them casually. There is no way. The summoned creatures are stupid. If the master does not keep giving orders and controlling them, they can do anything stupid, but if they have to be ordered to walk, Yang Tian is too tired and can only let it go. I saw that the Black Knights who stepped on the poison were all stained with a layer of purple, fell into a poisoned state, and began to lose blood. 50,000. 50,000. 50,000. 50,000 per second, the toxicity is quite strong. Yang Tian frowned secretly, but the Black Knights all have more than 10 million lives, so they can still bear it. Not long after, purple giant lizards emerged. This swamp is full of purple. Those lizards have protective sounds and blend into the environment. If they don't move, it's really hard to find them. Yang Tian saw a withered vine hanging on a withered tree trunk, flashing down and transforming into a strong lizard. Ghost Lizard, World Boss. Level 125. HP, 18 million. Basic Physical Attack, 180,000. Non-attribute Attack. Skills, Spray Venom, Roll Over, Charge. Passive, Vicious Poison. When attacked, there is a certain chance that the opponent will be poisoned. Ghost Lizards and Wind Lizards are only different in skin, which are roughly the same, but on the bald heads of the Ghost Lizards, there is a round purple poison bead. Seeing the Ghost Lizards gathering around, the little demon on Carrie's head smiled grimly and burst into an excited and piercing hiss, "Demon Sucker!" At this moment, all the Ghost Lizards around had bloodshot eyes and rushed towards Carrie. In addition, the Devil Sucker has its own suction power, which accelerates the speed at which the Gila monsters gather around them. After a while, the two sides are fighting together. Carrie took the damage while swiping with his hammer. At the same time, the Black Knights who were outside the hatred of the Gila monster also raised their spears and attacked the Gila monster. Gila monsters all have a poisonous passive. Even if they are beaten, there is a chance that the opponent will be poisoned. Under the frequent attacks of the Kree Black Knights, they all fell into a state of poisoning, and their bodies were stained with a layer of purple, and the blood was wiped away. 80,000. 80,000. 80,000. The passive toxicity of Gila monster is stronger than the venom, causing Carrie and many Black Knights to suffer considerable damage every second. Poisoning, among the many negative states, is the most special one. Such as freezing and dizziness, which mostly last 1 to 3 seconds. Burning, blindness, confusion, lasting no more than a minute. And poisoning, unless detoxified, will last forever. Even if it is a weak poison, it is very annoying. If it is a strong poison, it is even more terrifying. If you don't understand it, you can only wait for death. Fortunately, the poisoned state cannot be superimposed, and Carrie can bear it. Yang Tian's expression remained unchanged, and he casually shot a sea of dark fire below. Under the burning of black flames, many Gila monsters are burned every second, and their dark resistance is reduced by 5,500 points. At this moment, the combat power of Carrie and many Black Knights surged, and they were able to kill the Gila monsters instantly. After chopping melons and vegetables, they quickly wiped out the Gila monsters and exploded with various equipment and combat items. Among the many trophies, Yang Tian's sharp eyes discovered a purple poison bead. Super God Undead Lord. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 365. Gelamin Orb, Gold Quality / Special Prop increases poison resistance by 400 points, and is immune to poison below LV40. This item can take effect when placed in the inventory. Note, if there is a conflict between multiple props of the same attribute, the highest value will be used. Yang Tian picked up the poison bead and was quite satisfied. Gila monsters are inherently toxic, and their venom is the most toxic at LV40. The toxicity of its violent passive is only LV35. As for the venom of those puddles, it is even less toxic. Yang Tian gave the Gila monster orb to Carrie. After the latter took it, a white light flashed on his body, and the poisoning state disappeared and returned to normal. Carrie was so surprised that he immediately found a puddle full of venom and stepped into it with the sole of his foot. Sure enough, nothing happened. Carrie had the poison bead close to him and was fine, but the Black Knights were still in a poisoned state and were losing blood every second. Of course Yang Tian can send Alice to detoxify them, but there is no point. After all, the Black Knight is just a summon of the undead. It doesn't matter if all of them die. As long as the summoning skill CD is good, he can be summoned again at any time. He ordered Tengshi to clean up the loot and trim it for a minute. After the dark sea of fire cooled down again, Yang Tian led the team forward again. One day passed by, and Yang Tian and Carrie gained a lot of experience, and Yang Tian even got more than 10 Gila monster orbs. These are all good things, and they can take effect when placed in the inventory, saving equipment parts. However, this kind of special props conflict with the same attributes, so even if Yang Tian has more than a dozen Gila monster orbs, only one will be effective, providing him with 400 points of poison resistance. The next day, after breakfast, Yang Tian went online again and came to Gila Monster Swamp. As yesterday progressed, Yang Tian had now reached the depths of the Gila Monster Swamp. Yang Tian continued to walk forward and found that in addition to Gila monsters, there were also giant Gila monsters. Although the number is not large, it is also quite a lot. Giant Monster, World Lord. Level 130. HP, 50 million. Basic physical attack, 550,000. No attribute attack. Skills, Spray Venom, Brutal Collision, Venom Splash. Passive, Poison, Earthquake. After level 120, the boss is just a mob, and the Lord is naturally not a boss. Like high-level monsters in low-level maps, they can be seen everywhere. The more so, the more dangerous this island appears. Compared to the Gila monster, the giant Gila monster is undoubtedly more toxic, far exceeding LV-40 and reaching LV-45. When Carrie fought with it, the Gila monster orb could not resist the poison at all and lost 150,000 blood points every second. However, losing 150,000 blood per second may seem like a lot, but it doesn't matter to Carrie. After Yang Tian laid down the Sea of Dark Fire as usual, he sent a team of Black Knights, and together with Carrie, they quickly annihilated the group of Gila monsters and giant Gila monsters. Call out Soaring Snake to clean the loot, call out Alice to detoxify Carrie, rest for a minute, and then Yang Tian leads the team to continue moving forward. At the end of the day, Yang Tian got 3 giant Gila monster orbs. At the same time, he also came to the deepest part of the Gila monster swamp. Not long after, an unusually huge dark purple Gila monster appeared in front of him. The Gila monster is nearly 3 meters tall and more than 10 meters long. It is considered a giant. In terms of size, it is almost the same as a soaring snake. It's just that the snake has wings on its back and its body is upright, it is lying on the ground with its 4 legs. King of monsters, king of the world. Level 130. HP, 90 million. Basic physical attack, 1.3 million. No attribute attack. Skills, Venom Splash, Sprint, Bite. Passive, Poison, Miasma, Earthquake. The back of the Gila Monster King is covered with sieve-like holes, and poisonous gas will be emitted from these holes from time to time, creating a misty poisonous miasma around it. There is no doubt that the poisonous miasma is extremely toxic. If a person with insufficient poison resistance walks in, he will be poisoned in an instant. Yang Tian looked through the poisonous miasma and saw that there was also a poison-resistant orb on the huge and bare head of the Gila Monster King. It was very huge and deep in color, so it was probably very effective. How dare you, a lowly ant, break into this king's territory? The Gilded Lizard King's cold gaze glanced between Yang Tian, Tang Snake Carrie and the many Black Knights, and finally locked his eyes on Yang Tian. The so-called persimmon picks the weak, the Gila Lizard King has certain wisdom and should target Yang Tian first. I saw it opening its bloody mouth and spraying out countless venom, shooting towards the sky like a heavy rain. Its scope is so large that it almost blocks all Yang Tian's escape routes. Yang Tian was so horrified that he quickly handed over Flicker and teleported upwards 3.5 yards, barely able to avoid it. The huge Teng Shi, who was standing next to Yang Tian, was hit by the one-eye splash of the Gila Monster King. He lost tens of millions of blood in an instant and fell into a poisoned state, losing more than 200,000 blood per second. Yang Tianguanzi was shocked. The Cretan snake could withstand this kind of poison. If he had been poisoned within a few seconds, he would have been poisoned to death. More importantly, the poison of the Gila monster is so strong that even Alice's purification may not be able to remove it. With shock in his heart, Yang Tian immediately ordered the little devil on top of Carrie's head to activate the devil sucker. At this moment, the Gila King's eyes suddenly turned scarlet, staring at Carrie, and rushed towards him desperately. The Gila Monster King is huge and fat, but its speed is surprisingly fast. As it moves, poisonous gas is emitted from the holes behind it, causing a mobile poisonous miasma. Enemies can be put into a strong poisoned state anytime and anywhere. At this time, Yang Tian, who was beyond the hatred of the Gilded Lizard King, was finally out of danger and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. If it was a normal boss, Yang Tian could barely resist it with the help of the Bone Shield, the 5 Elements Shield, and the Taurus Tiangang. But the poisonous Lizard King can easily kill Yang Tian with its poison, and Yang Tian can't help but be afraid. In the deepest part of the poisonous swamp, in addition to the poisonous Lizard King, there are also many poisonous lizards and giant poisonous lizards here. Under the absolute ridicule of the devil sucker, the poisonous lizard king and all the poisonous lizards rushed towards Carrie frantically, and of course the Black Knight team around Carrie could not escape. The two sides fought fiercely. Because of the effect of the Dark Sea of Fire, Carrie and many Black Knights' combat power soared, and they could easily kill the poisonous lizards in seconds. But the poisonous lizard king and the giant poisonous lizard were not so easy to kill. Especially the poisonous lizard king, it was fat and big, and it was obviously just attacking Carrie, but it could inadvertently hurt many Black Knights around it. There are advantages and disadvantages to being large in size. The disadvantage is that the target is too large and it is very easy to be hit. The advantage is that the attack range is large. The poisonous lizard king has high damage and fast speed. A random attack can cause an earthquake, which will spread to a radius of 10 yards and stir up smoke and dust. Especially its slender and powerful tail, which whipped wildly and wiped out the team of Black Knights in just a few seconds. Even the powerful Dwarf King Carrie lost a lot of blood, reaching 1/5. This has never been seen in previous battles. Let the corpses explode. Yang Tian did not dare to slack off, and quickly summoned a team of skeleton warriors, and then snapped his fingers, and there was a loud explosion. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super God Undead Lord. Author, Ba Wang Shi-san. Chapter 366. Among the many undead under Yang Tian, only the skeleton warrior has a TP passive, and the number of summons is the largest, far exceeding other undead. Nowadays, Yang Tian can summon more than 1,000 skeleton warriors at a time. Due to the version limit on burst damage, the power of Yang Tian's corpse explosion has also been reduced, but even so, corpse explosion is still his most proud skill. Boom boom boom. After a fierce explosion, the poisonous lizards and giant poisonous lizards were all killed, leaving only the poisonous lizard king with residual blood. Damage deepened. Yang Tian decisively comboed, causing the poisonous lizard king's wounds to split open and exploded to death. Now, Yang Tian's damage deepening has reached LV50, 5 times the damage. If there is the strongest skill in Taeju, it is undoubtedly the damage deepening, but its limitation is too large, and it can only rely on the previous burst damage. The poisonous lizard king exploded gorgeously, and there was even a golden king equipment. Yang Tian didn't care. Compared with the level 130 king equipment, he cared more about the purple round gem that was as big as a water tank. Poison Lizard King Gem, King Equipment / Special Item increase 500 points of poison resistance, immune to poison below LV50, and the item will take effect when placed in the inventory. Note, there is a conflict between multiple items with the same attribute, and the highest value is taken. You should know that LV50 poison resistance is already quite high at this stage. Even the only skill poison attack of the title Scorpio Guardian is only LV50 poison. As we all know, the Constellation Guardian title is extremely rare and is now out of print. Almost no one can collect it all, even Yang Tian only has 3 of them. So that means that Yang Tian carries this Poison Lizard King gem, and he will not be at all inferior to players with the Scorpio Guardian title in the future, and he will be directly immune to the opponent's poison attack. Tang Shi quickly cleaned up the spoils dropped by the Poison Lizard King. Yang Tian and others rested for a minute and were about to leave this place to look for other groups of poisonous lizards. Who knew that suddenly a white light flashed, and a group of poisonous lizards refreshed on the spot. Tisk tisk, I didn't expect this to be a treasure land for leveling up, Yang Tian exclaimed. Some monster areas in Taeju will hide unnoticeable treasure lands for leveling up. In any treasure land for leveling up, there are more monsters, and the frequency of monster refresh is faster than that of ordinary places, and the explosion rate is higher. It is not that there are many monsters and the refresh frequency is fast, which creates the illusion of high explosion rate. It is really high explosion rate. These three factors combined make the treasure land for leveling up extremely precious on those low-level maps of the Empire. Once a treasure land for leveling up is discovered, it will inevitably attract many players and guild forces to fight for it. And the treasure land for leveling up on the 41st island obviously has no one to compete with Yang Tian, so Yang Tian also saved the trouble of finding monsters again and started to refresh on the spot. Another month passed, and it was winter in December. During this period, in addition to the necessary eating, drinking, defecating and urinating, Yang Tian stayed in the treasure land for leveling up deep in the poisonous swamp and worked hard to level up. On this day, Yang Tian finally upgraded to level 118. Yang Tian opened the national server ranking list and found that he was already in the top 5, while the highest level god left hand was level 119. After working hard for a month, his level still did not exceed God Left Hand. However, God Left Hand was level 115 a month ago, and he actually only upgraded 4 levels. Yang Tian was level 110 a month ago, and upgraded a full 8 levels. This is enough to prove that Yang Tian's upgrade speed is far faster than God Left Hand. At this pace, Yang Tian is likely to be one step ahead of God Left Hand and upgrade to level 120. Hey, there are actually 3 anonymous players who have surpassed me in level. Yang Tian was stunned. The first in the national server level, God Left Hand, is level 119. Number 234, all anonymous, all level 118. Yang Tian is exactly 5th, level 118. They are also level 118, and the reason why the 3 anonymous players are ranked higher is obviously that they have more experience at the current level. However, Taegzu has been open for more than a year, and now all the masters of the national server have surfaced. Moreover, the combat power list, which is much more valuable than the level list, cannot be anonymous. Because of this, there is no need for masters to hide their heads and tails, and in fact they can't hide at all. People with a little experience can pull out the anonymity by comparing the level list with the combat power list. However, Yang Tian compared the top 100 players in the national server combat power list and found that except for himself, no one was level 118. This is strange. Is it a player who only knows how to level up? Yang Tian was stunned and contacted Xiao Fei and said, "Xiao Fei, I have been busy leveling up recently and haven't paid much attention to the level list. Do you know who those 3 guys are?" "Brother Shui, I am also surprised. I have always paid attention to the top 10 in the level list. I can read their IDs. They are not suddenly anonymous," Xiao Fei said. "Those 3 guys seem to have suddenly rushed up." "Suddenly rushed up? Suddenly rushed to the top 234? MMP, this is too weird, right?" Yang Tian secretly smacked his lips. "Brother Shui, level is level, combat power is combat power. Those 3 guys are hiding their heads and showing their tails, and they can't even enter the battle list. They are obviously just unknown people. They have no power and are not a threat to us. Our main goal at the moment is to defeat Zeus," Xiao Fei reminded. Yeah, Yang Tian nodded, and after the connection was disconnected, he continued to concentrate on leveling up. On the other side, Zeus. That kid Han Shui has reached level 118 so quickly. How is this possible? God's Left Hand, who had been paying attention to the level list, was shocked. Han Shui is a necromancer, and he has already formed. He is indeed very fast at killing monsters, but his resources are not as good as mine, unless... God's Left Hand was startled and turned to look at the direction of the vast sea in front of him, where Island 41 was located. He had been to Island 41, but was instantly killed by a group of wind lizards. Fortunately, he has the title Guardian of Capricorn, and the only passive skill of this title is Resurrection. When he receives fatal damage, he will be resurrected after 5 seconds, with 50% of the maximum HP and MP, CD, 30 minutes. He successfully escaped and avoided the risk of falling. After that, he was very wary of Island 41. Unless he reached level 120, he would not dare to go there again, let alone think about leveling up there. Impossible, that island is too dangerous, even the Emperor Beast can't stand it, God's left hand concluded directly. He didn't know that the dwarf King Kari, a war servant under Yang Tian, was the world emperor and could just stand up. President, you are now level 119, only one step away from level 120. Muddy Water is only level 118, why are you so worried? God's right hand smiled comfortingly. What do you know? God's left hand groaned and said, I only leveled up 4 levels this month, and a month ago, Muddy Water was only level 110, and he leveled up 8 levels. How terrifying, according to this rhythm, he must have reached level 120 before me. Super God Undead Lord. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 367. At this time, God's left hand lost his usual calmness, his eyes were wide open, bloodshot, veins on his face rolled, and he looked ferocious like a demon. He seemed to have suddenly changed his personality, which scared God's right hand on the opposite side. No, I am the strongest, no one can defeat me, God's left hand roared crazily, and inadvertently burst out with a terrifying murderous aura. God's right hand swallowed a mouthful of saliva forcibly, and was sweating profusely. In the Chinese gaming industry, Zeus is a legendary guild with a glorious history. They gather talented children with gaming and esports talents and train them from childhood. God's left hand and God's right hand are legendary ids, which can only be owned by the strongest and second strongest people in history. In the eyes of the world, God's left hand and God's right hand represent the first and second strongest in the national server respectively, the two of them join forces to look down on the entire server. The world believes that God's left hand and God's right hand in all generations are all legendary figures, and the gap between the two should not be big. At present, the relationship between the contemporary God's left hand and God's right hand does not look like a brotherly equal relationship, but a superior subordinate relationship. The two sides are not at the same level at all. In front of God's left hand, God's right hand is just trembling. Is he absolutely obsessed with victory, or is he too afraid of failure? If it is the latter, his heart is too fragile. Looking at the ferocious appearance of the president, God's right hand sighed secretly. For some reason, he suddenly felt a little lost. He is also a person who is praised as a genius. Maybe he has too high expectations for himself, but the reality is far from satisfactory. After a long time, he sighed and said to himself, forget it, I am indeed not as good as him, and this can be seen from the top. I just do my job well, assist him, and keep Zeus's title as the strongest in the national server. He forced a smile and tried his best to calm the negative emotions in his heart. He said, President, don't worry, Muddy Water will never reach level 120 before you. Just now, my subordinates sent me something, look. As he spoke, he took out a document similar to an invitation letter. Admission ticket to Deep Sea Ruins, consumable with this ticket, players can form a group to enter the Deep Sea Ruins after use, the time limit is 12 hours. Deep Sea Ruins. Could that be the real ruins of the Sea of Ruins? After a long time, God's left hand finally calmed down. He took the document and looked at it, and was slightly stunned. God's left hand has extraordinary qualifications. With a casual guess, it was almost right. The Sea of Ruins is divided into the Sea and the Deep Sea. The Deep Sea is the real ruins, which contains treasures lost in ancient times, such as 3-color spiritual tools, 5-color fairy tools, and various bloodlines, etc. Although these treasures are also available in the sea ruins, they are very rare and difficult to encounter. Anyway, go and take a look first. If there is nothing to gain, I can only declare war on the Water Alliance. No matter what, I will not allow muddy water to reach level 120 before me. Even if both sides suffer losses, I will never let him get what he wants. God's left hand snorted coldly and began to gather people. With the Deep Sea Ruins admission ticket, players can enter in groups. As strong as God's left hand is, he naturally has the title of Royal Commander, with which he can form a group of up to 501 people. A moment later, God's left hand used the admission ticket and entered the deep sea with God's right hand, God's apple, and other 500 strong men. Huh? Deep Sea Ruins admission ticket. It finally came out. A few hours later, Yang Tian also dropped an admission ticket. Admission ticket to Deep Sea Ruins, consumable with this ticket, players can form a group to enter the Deep Sea Ruins after using it, the time limit is 2 hours. Yang Tian knew that this kind of admission ticket was hard to drop at sea, but it was easy to get in the deep sea. In addition, although they were all admission tickets, the time limits were different. Some were limited to 1 hour, some were limited to 3 hours, and some were limited to 5 hours. The best admission ticket was limited to 12 hours, and the worst admission ticket was limited to half an hour. This kind of admission ticket can be traded and will definitely be popular in the future. The 12-hour admission ticket is undoubtedly expensive. And the half-hour admission ticket is undoubtedly very cheap. Yang Tian was not as lucky as God's left hand. He only dropped a 2-hour admission ticket this time. Since there are only 2 hours, I don't need to mobilize a large number of troops. Yang Tian smiled and used up the ticket directly, and then his eyes went dark. System, you found Deep Sea Ruins and gained 80,000 experience points. As the system prompt sounded in his ears, Yang Tian found that he had come to the deep sea. Looking up, he could see some deep sea monsters galloping in the sea water, pulling out a series of bubbles. Due to the water pressure, Yang Tian could clearly feel a strong resistance, and even he had been attached with a negative state. System, due to the influence of deep sea water pressure, agility -30%, damage -30%. System, you can't breathe in the water, please feel free to find a way breathe, otherwise you will suffocate to death, and the remaining breath holding time is 29 minutes. Tip, the ancient city ruins in the deep sea are isolated from the sea water. Spirit collectors can breathe freely in the water and are not afraid of the deep sea water pressure. Yang Tian is obviously not a spirit king. In the deep sea, he not only has to hold his breath, but also has his combat power weakened by the water pressure. Of course, Yang Tian had already run through this deep sea ruins in his previous life, so he was not surprised at the moment. At this moment, Yang Tian suddenly felt the surrounding water pressure fluctuate wildly, thinking it was caused by the giant rushing. He suddenly focused his attention and looked forward, and found a sea dragon with a bloody mouth pounced on him. The sea dragon resembles an oriental dragon, with a bull's head, deer horns, a snake's body, fish scales, and eagle claws. Its entire body is dark blue, and its lower jaw has white dragon whiskers. The sea dragon has dragon genes, and can be considered a dragon, but its status is not high, and it is at the bottom of the dragon clan. But, the sea dragon is a dragon after all. Abyss Sea Dragon, World Royal Beast. Level 120. HP, 250 million. Basic physical attack, 1.8 million. No attribute attack. Skills, Dragon Breath, Turning Clouds and Rain, Dragon Claws, Power Attack. Damn, I just met such a big guy when I got here. Yang Tian was startled by such a huge monster rushing over. Even if he flashed, he couldn't avoid it, so he immediately changed his clothes and opened the 5 elements shield in seconds. Suddenly, Yang Tian felt the sky darken, and the Abyss Sea Dragon actually swallowed him in one bite. Of course, because of the 5 elements shield, he did not receive any damage. Dare to swallow me? Yang Tian sneered and waved his hand to shoot out a dark sea of fire. Black flames are not fire in nature, but darkness, and are not afraid of water. So as long as Yang Tian wants, he can create a dark sea of fire on the sea surface. But in the deep sea, there is no surface to be found, so the dark sea of fire cannot be used, just like Yang Tian cannot create a dark sea of fire in the air. However, Yang Tian is currently in the belly of the sea dragon, so he can release the dark sea of fire. I'm afraid that the sea dragon would never think that it swallowed Yang Tian in one gulp, which actually helped Yang Tian. Super God Undead Lord. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 368. Despite the strong defense of the Abyss Sea Dragon, the internal organs and flesh in its body are extremely fragile. The dark sea of fire rising in the sky, the burns every second are almost real damage, making the abyssal sea dragon miserable, circling and galloping crazily in the deep sea. At the same time, Yang Tian, who was in Hai Long's body, felt violent shaking, like a roller coaster. You still don't open your mouth. Yang Tian was in the belly of the sea dragon, surrounded by darkness, but he thought and knew that the belly must secrete a lot of acidic water. He had the 5 elements shield around him, so he didn't notice anything yet, but after a few seconds, the 5 elements shield disappeared, and he was probably going to be digested by the sea dragon in an instant and turned into a flying pile. In desperation, Yang Tian waved his hand and summoned 500 self-destructing spiders, but the imagined explosion did not happen. Yang Tian suddenly realized, thinking that the self-exploding spider was too weak. It had just been summoned and had been corroded to death by acid water before it could explode. Damn it, I'll fight you to death. Yang Tian could no longer care too much and directly summoned more than 1,000 skeleton warriors. 2 summons almost consumed all his mana. At this time, Yang Tian might not be able to see it when he was inside Hai Long's belly, but Hai Long's belly had swollen into a huge ball, obviously being held up by an army of skeletons. Corpse explosion. With a thought in Yang Tian's mind, the skeleton army exploded in Hai Long's body. The violent energy instantly shattered Hai Long into pieces, causing blood mist to rise into the sky. Countless pieces of flesh also flew in all directions along with the shock wave. There is almost no defense or resistance in the sea dragon's body, and Yang Tian's corpse explosion caused almost real damage, who knows how many billions. Even though the Abyss Sea Dragon is the emperor beast of the world, it was directly killed by the explosion. System: you kill the world's imperial beast Abyss Sea Dragon for the first time, and you will receive additional rewards as follows: 1. Skill point 19 million experience points and 10 gold coins. The system notification sounded casually in his ears, and Yang Tian was freed smoothly. The scene in front of him was very cruel, full of blood, and soon attracted many deep-sea monsters. There are sea snakes, turtles, and deep-sea lobsters, most of which are world leaders at levels 115 to 120. The deep-sea ruins are huge, containing countless ancient city ruins, ranging from level 80 to level 180. When a player enters a deep-sea ruins, he will randomly appear in any deep sea of a similar level to the player. Yang Tian didn't fight them. He finally arrived at the deep-sea ruins and only had 2 hours. It would be a waste of time to fight those garbage monsters. However, Yang Tian won the first kill of Hai Long and gained a huge amount of experience points, which was equivalent to spending a day farming monsters in the poison swamp. He had already earned. The Abyss Sea Dragon's first kill revealed a lot of loot, and Yang Tian hurriedly sent Soaring Snake to clean it up. Tengshi is extremely water resistant and can breathe in water, and is not affected by the pressure of deep water at all. A few minutes later, Yang Tian called up the system map of the deep sea ruins. The map showed the vast deep sea with only a few ancient city ruins on it. The deep sea ruins are also hidden maps. The map is completely blank except for the vast deep sea. Every time a player discovers an ancient city ruins, the ancient city ruins will be marked on the map. According to the map, it is impossible to find those ancient city ruins that have not yet been discovered, because there is no such thing on the map. However, Yang Tian looked at the map and finally knew his specific location. He has past life experience, and just knowing this is enough to facilitate him to move forward. Without further ado, he immediately mounted the soaring snake and galloped forward. His first goal at the moment was to find the ruins of an ancient city to get some air, otherwise, he might suffocate to death and lose one level in vain. Half an hour passed, and it stands to reason that he had suffocated to death. Fortunately, he found a colorful bubble on the way, which was produced by some kind of deep-sea plant and contained oxygen. He used this to breathe and could hold his breath for another 30 minutes. Obviously, the deep-sea ruins are not friendly to the first batch of pioneers. The map is completely blank. It is difficult for the pioneers to find the ruins of the ancient city to take a breath, and they may easily suffocate to death. After a period of time, most of the ancient city ruins were discovered by players and displayed on the map. That way it would be very simple for the player to breathe. After another 10 minutes, Yang Tian finally discovered a magical ancient city suspended in the deep sea. Looking around, you can see that there is a huge air film covering the ancient city, which isolates the sea water from the ancient city. Although it is within the deep sea, the ancient city is a world of its own, with air, sunshine, wind, water, flowers, plants and trees. After Yang Tian gave an order, Teng Shi took him to the ancient city through the air membrane. Taking a few greedy breaths of fresh air, Yang Tian completed his ventilation, and that's not all. The ancient city was a world of its own, with no shortage of oxygen. Yang Tian didn't need to hold his breath at all when he stayed in the ancient city. System, you discovered the ancient city ruins, 38, and gained 150,000 experience points. System, since you are the first discoverer of this hidden map, you will receive 1 additional skill point. As Yang Tian received the reward, the ancient city ruins, 38, also appeared on the map of the deep sea ruins. Yang Tian walked on the streets of the ancient city. Looking around, the ancient city looked old and dilapidated. According to background information, all ancient cities are ancient ruins with long histories and countless legacies. And those legacies are usually presented by treasure chests. In other words, there are treasure chests everywhere in the ancient city. Even if you encounter spiritual level treasure chests and higher level treasure chests, don't be surprised. Those treasure chests are considered as the welfare of the pioneers, because once they are opened, it is difficult to refresh them again. And the ancient city without treasure chests is meaningless to a certain extent, and can only provide a place for adventurers to breathe. There are advantages and disadvantages to pioneering. The advantages are many benefits, and the disadvantages are extremely dangerous. A moment later, Yang Tian found a golden treasure chest under a broken wall, but around the treasure chest, there was a group of huge faceless rats. Vampire Rat, World Elite. Level 115. HP, 2.3 million. Basic physical attack, 80,000. Passive, blood sucking. Vampire rats are dark all over, about 1 meter long, and fat like pigs. They have no face on their heads, let alone eyes, ears, and noses, only a mouthful of sharp teeth. Vampire rats are not strong, but very troublesome. Once they get close, they can bind the enemy and suck blood frequently. If a group of them surround them, they can bind them infinitely and suck blood to death. Yang Tian certainly wouldn't give them a chance, and he summoned a team of Black Knights to rush up and fight with the blood-sucking rats. After finding the target, the blood-sucking rats jumped onto the Black Knight's face and bound him to suck blood. Other than that, they seemed to have no other means of attack. Interestingly, 1 second later, the blood-sucking rats that jumped onto the Black Knight's face jumped down again and continued to look for the next target. Did they actually give up sucking the Black Knight's blood? Actually, that's not the case, because the Black Knight has no blood at all, so the blood-sucking passive of the blood-sucking rat cannot be triggered. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super God Undead Lord. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 369. The blood-sucking rats were stupid. They didn't give up even though they couldn't suck blood from the Black Knight. Instead, they jumped down again and jumped onto the faces of other Black Knights again. Of course, they couldn't cause even a little damage to the Black Knights. The bound Black Knight couldn't move, but the other Black Knights didn't show any mercy and attacked fiercely with guns. After a while, they wiped out all the blood-sucking rats. Bah, a bunch of disgusting and ugly things, Tang Shi snorted coldly. It had been following Yang Tian and had not participated in the battle before. Stop talking, go pick up things, Yang Tian instructed. Tang Shi snorted, but he honestly went to pick up the things dropped by the blood-sucking rats. Yang Tian smiled and walked towards the golden treasure chest. He saw that it was locked. Although he could transform into a nether assassin and possess all the skills of a nether assassin, the nether assassin, although an assassin, didn't have the most basic lock-picking skills. If I had known earlier, I would have brought Sci-fi with me, Yang Tian sighed secretly. There are treasure chests everywhere in the ancient city of the deep-sea ruins, and most of them are locked. So when players come to the deep-sea ruins to open up new land, they basically have to form an assassin with advanced lock-picking skills. Yang Tian's ticket only lasts for 2 hours, so he didn't think too much and just wanted to come and take a look. After all, it was too boring to swamp monsters in the poisonous swamp for a month, and sometimes you have to change your mood. Yang Tian didn't care too much about a mere golden treasure chest. After Tang Snake picked up the things, he set off again with him. Along the way, who would have thought that there were treasure chests everywhere, which was not a big deal until Yang Tian found a 3-color spiritual treasure chest in a dilapidated cave, and then he completely collapsed. Golden treasure chests may not have locks, and more advanced treasure chests are almost all locked. Yang Tian looked at the 3-color treasure chest, but he had no power to unlock it, and he couldn't help but feel very entangled. At this time, a group of black monsters holding sickles surrounded him. They were about 2 meters tall, standing upright, with their backs bulging like hunchbacks, making them look particularly burly. Deep Sea Yaksha, World Lord. Level 120. HP, 50 million. Basic physical attack, 550,000. Dark attribute attack. Skills, cutting. Passive, earthquake, chaos. Stupid and greedy human, how dare you covet my king's treasure chest, the deep sea yaksha cursed angrily. If Tang Snake had not been present, they would probably have been even more disdainful of Yang Tian. A group of world lords, although this lineup is luxurious, it is indeed not up to standard when used to guard the spiritual treasure chest, Yang Tian said secretly. The king mentioned by those yaksha is the final boss guarding this spiritual treasure chest. That boss should be the world emperor beast, but it may also be a spiritual beast. The boss has not appeared yet, and Yang Tian can only guess. Although he couldn't open the spirit level treasure chest, it was good to force out the boss and get the first kill. Dark Sea of Fire. Summon the Black Knight. Seeing the group of yakshas attacking fiercely, Yang Tian immediately cast the Sea of Fire to reduce resistance, and then sent 50 Black Knights to meet them. The two sides fought together. The Deep Sea Yaksha's damage was very high. Using the Black Sickle to cut the Black Knight, it could deal millions of damage and take away half of the health. Not only that, the Deep Sea Yaksha has its own confusion passive. The injured Black Knight immediately lost his mind and did not listen to Yang Tian's command at all, and began to attack randomly. The Black Knights had internal fighting, and a group of powerful Deep Sea Yakshas were harvesting crazily, and the situation was precarious. Yang Tian quickly ordered Tang Shi to fight, and he also put on a bone shield, transformed into a skeleton archer, and shot at the back of the team. This version of violent damage conflict not only affected Yang Tian, but also his undead. Undeads have their own critical damage. Before the revision, they added to Yang Tian's critical damage, which was quite terrible. Now, when they add to Yang Tian's critical damage, there will also be conflicts and the highest value will be taken, which is a serious weakening. Before the revision, Yang Tian's combat power was slightly weaker than the powerful undead such as the Black Knight and the Nether Assassin, and far exceeded the likes of the Skeleton Warrior. After the revision, everyone has been weakened, and Yang Tian has regained his dignity as the master. His combat power once again surpasses all the undead. Versions are versions, not targeting one person. All players, NPCs, and monsters have been weakened, which is very fair. In summary, Yang Tian's current combat power is also quite strong. Under the dark sea of fire that continues to reduce the enemy's resistance, Yang Tian can kill a full-blooded yaksha in 3 arrows. If you use skills, or attack a yaksha with its back to you, triggering the triple back attack of the title low-key warrior, you can kill it directly. In a few seconds, Yang Tian shot and killed several yakshas in succession, and a rain of arrows even beat all the remaining yakshas to residual blood. At this time, the Black Knights were finally wiped out, leaving more than a dozen low-health yakshas fighting with Tank Shi. Some of the yakshas gave up Tank Shi, wielded huge sickles, and attacked Yang Tian. Yang Tian was not panicked at all. Now, the undercurrent under his feet has reached a terrifying range of 10 yards, but under the cover of the dark sea of fire, no one knows. The yakshas wanted to get close to Yang Tian, but they naturally fell into the undercurrent, and their speed was greatly reduced. Yang Tian sneered, walked and shot, paying attention to the range fluctuations of the undercurrent, and soon kite away the few low-health yakshas. Half a minute later, Yang Tian and Tank Shi cooperated with each other and easily harvested all the yakshas. Perhaps due to the screams of the deep-sea yakshas before they died, the boss finally came out of the dark and showed his true face. He also carried a black sickle, stood upright, wore a glazed armor, and a high crown on his head. Except for the yaksha head, he was almost human. His stature was comparable to Yang Tian, and slightly shorter than the deep-sea yaksha. Yaksha Jim, Spiritual Beast. Level 120. HP, 8.6 billion. Dark Attribute Attack. Skills. Passive. A mere ant, slaughtering my people and coveting my treasure chest. It's really not a pity to die. Yaksha Jim groaned, waved his sickle and jumped up, slashing the long neck of Tang Snake with one knife. In an instant, blood gushed out like a waterfall, and Tang Snake's nearly 100 million life was only a little bit left. What's more terrifying is that the injury on Tang Snake's neck is still bleeding, and it is actually in a bleeding state, losing more than 300,000 blood per second. If Tang Snake was in its prime, it would not care about this little bleeding damage, but now it only has a trace of blood left, and it panicked. It's really a spirit beast. This is tricky. Yang Tian's heart jumped. You know, there is only one step between the Emperor Beast and the Spirit Beast, but that step is like a natural chasm. If you can climb it, it's heaven, and if you can't climb it, it's earth. The gap between them is huge. Yasha Jim is a level 120 Spirit Beast, and Tang Snake is a level 118 Emperor Beast. There is not much level difference between the two. But Yasha Jim can almost kill Tang Snake in seconds. Super God Undead Lord. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 370. At this time, Soaring Snake hissed in pain and quickly flapped its wings to take off. However, Yasha Jim is a spiritual beast and can fly in the air. He took off directly and chased Soaring Snake. Yang Tian was below and quickly put a layer of weak halo on Yasha Jim, weakening its speed and damage, just to save Tang Shi. Call out. Yasha Jim, who had a weak aura, felt that his body had become a little heavier, but this did not prevent him from attacking. He waved his scythe and swiped it towards Soaring Snake from a distance, immediately triggering a crescent-shaped air blade. The air blade flew past and cut off the snake in half, causing it to bleed to death. This is completely unbeatable. Yang Tian was horrified. At this moment, Yashijim dived to the ground, swung the sickle and slashed towards his neck. The movements were extremely coherent and not sloppy at all. Yashijim's combat power was so high that he could almost kill Soaring Snake instantly. Even though Yang Tian had a bone shield with him, he didn't dare to attack him forcefully. He quickly changed his clothes and turned on the 5 elements shield. With a doon sound, Yashijim swung his sickle and slashed at Yang Tian's neck, sparks aroused, and the damage was naturally immune to the 5 element shield. Yang Tian quickly waved his hand and summoned hundreds of steel artillery vehicles on the spot, surrounding Yashijim. In the early stages of the game, the steel cannon cart is considered a very strong undead tank, with high defense, thick HP, and extremely high stiffness. But in the later stages, Yang Tian's lineup became stronger and stronger, and the steel gun carriage became useless, so much so that Yang Tian almost forgot about its summoning skills. By chance, Yang Tian discovered that as his level increased, the steel gun carriage whose level synchronized with it had learned a very useful skill, gravity cannon. Such a discovery naturally made Yang Tian pay attention to the steel gun carriage again, and at the same time he improved his summoning skill level. Gravity cannon. I saw numerous steel artillery vehicles, suddenly firing at Yashijim. The damage was very low, almost negligible. Because the steel gun truck is not an output type undead. However, after Yashijim withstood the gravity cannon, his feet produced a circle of gravity fluctuations, which made his feet very heavy and his movement speed was greatly reduced. There is a conflict between gravity cannons. Even if dozens of gravity cannons hit Yashijim at the same time, one and only one gravity cannon will produce a deceleration effect. Coupled with Yang Tian's undercurrent passive, Yashijim double decelerated. Both are slowing down, but undercurrent and gravity cannon are different skills. The effects of the two will not conflict, but will superimpose. You're a small trick, you lowly ant, do you think you can escape from me like this? Yashijim snorted angrily. Undercurrent and gravity cannon both slow down by a percentage. Even though Yashijim's basic agility is quite high, his movement speed is now as slow as a tortoise. He wants to get close to Yang Tian but cannot. Yang Tian ignored him and waved his hand to spread darkness. The dark sea of fire below is still burning, and combined with the coming of darkness, Yashijim's dark resistance is weakened by 11,000 points. At the same time, Yang Tian waved his hands repeatedly, summoning 500 skeleton mages and 500 skeleton archers behind him. Hit me, Yang Tian roared, and 1,000 skeletons behind him immediately focused their fire and attacked. Boom boom boom. As a series of deafening explosions sounded, smoke and dust billowed in the air, and dense damage values appeared. 1809. 2030. 1982. The undead army concentrated fire at the same time. Although the damage caused to Yashijim individually was not high, the damage added up to many was very considerable. I'm afraid there are millions of injuries per second. The skeleton archers had the stun archery skill, and many skeleton archers focused their fire like crazy, once controlling Yashijim for half a minute. During this period, Yang Tian united with an army of 1,000 skeletons and hundreds of steel artillery vehicles to deliver crazy output, causing tons of damage. It's a pity that Yashijim is a spiritual beast with a HP as high as 8.6 billion. Yang Tian's crazy output only caused Yashijim's health bar to drop a little, estimated to be only about 1%. The gap is too big. Yang Tian couldn't help but smile bitterly. At this time, many skeleton archers had completed their stun archery skills. Yashijim, who had released his control, roared angrily, and then a white light flashed, and his body expanded tenfold in an instant, becoming a giant. After the spirit gathering, the destiny changes and is no longer an ordinary thing. Not only can it fly into the sky and enter the sea, but it can also become larger or smaller. Of course, there will be an upper limit to the size of the Spirit King and Spirit Beast. For example, Mythical beasts can also become larger or smaller. Divine beasts can naturally become larger than spiritual beasts. Damn ants, Giant Jim roared and stamped his feet, causing an earthquake and a violent shock wave. In just an instant, all the steel artillery carts surrounding it were killed. Even Yang Tian behind him was swept by the shock wave. His hair stood on end, and the indestructible bone shield Bang 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 was also instantly broken into slag. Yang Tian was knocked back and fell into the army of skeletons, with only a trace of blood left. Fortunately, it was just the shock wave of the earthquake. Otherwise, I would have died. Yang Tian was horrified. Now his bone shield had a life thickness of tens of millions. Even so, it was still vulnerable to Yashajim. All the steel cannon trucks were destroyed, and the gravity cannon could no longer be unleashed on Yashajim. Yang Tian was shaken back by the earthquake shock wave, which also caused Yashajim to escape the scope of the undercurrent. At this time, Yashajim regained his peak speed and once again kicked the tower, like a mountain pressing down, blocking out the sky and the sun. Transfer of the undead. Seeing this, Yang Tian quickly exchanged positions with the farthest skeleton, and at the same time, he launched a corpse explosion. Boom! At the moment when Giant Jim's foot collapsed, all the undead exploded, and smoke and dust billowed, causing Jim to scream. However, Yang Tian transformed into the vampire count and took off to escape. He knew that no matter how high the damage of the corpse explosion was, it would never pose a threat to Yaksha Jim. If he didn't escape now, he would never be able to escape again. He was now in the critical period of rushing to level 120 to gather spirits, and he definitely didn't want to drop levels. 5 seconds later, Yang Tian left the combat state and transformed into the Nether Assassin, sneaking and stealthily running fast, trying his best to escape from this dangerous place. When Yaksha Jim reacted, Yang Tian was no longer there. He was so angry that he roared repeatedly, waving his huge sickle and venting wildly. In the blink of an eye, he destroyed the cave, and the rocks flew everywhere, and it was a mess. On the other side, Yang Tian had left the ancient city and dived into the deep sea again. He couldn't defeat the spirit beast, nor could he open the tricolor treasure chest. Even though the 2-hour time limit had not yet expired, Yang Tian was already ready to leave. At this moment, 3 players rushed towards Yang Tian. Yang Tian looked closely and found that they were Xiaoyu, Lanyan, and Xieying, whom he had not seen for a long time. Yang Tian was startled. Could it be that these 3 guys were the 3 anonymous people ranked 234th on the national server ranking list?